What's up and welcome to Idle Insights, a show where each week I, Treavor Bettis, talk to interesting people about idle champions and Dungeons and Dragons. And joining me this week is Kim Richards. Hello!
Hello, I'm an interesting person.
You are an interesting person. That's why we got you here.
Insight on that, please. Insight on that.
If anything, there's like a B plot for this show where I'm just gonna make sure that everyone that's on it knows they are an interesting person.
It's a good host thing to do, like, tick. Well done.
Yeah. All right, cool. Got one down.
Tell me more.
Well, actually, Kim, why don't you tell people, for folks who don't know who you are you for those fine folks?
Okay, hi, I'm Kim. I am one of the founding members of High Rollers D&D. We are a D&D channel that has been running for 8 years now.
Oh, wow.
Maybe 9, I can't remember. We're on our 3rd campaign at the moment. I feel like I keep wanting to say it's just started, but we're kind of 26, 27 episodes in.
Yeah.
2 months. Yeah, and so the reason I'm here is because my character Nova is in Idle Champions, and she's from our 2nd campaign, Erois. And we just gave her a new skin, so I'm here to represent.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that, Nova, and all that fun stuff with High Rollers. And you say that it's been like 8 or 9 years. I'm like, oh yeah, I still had my terrible soul sucking office job when y'all started. Like I remember seeing the announcement tweet like in my break room.
Oh my gosh, really? Like, let's not start with this because we have people in our audience who are now like, I watched you when I was in school and now I graduated and I have a first job. And I'm just like, like in Indiana Jones where he drinks from the wrong cup.
Yeah.
Every time. Every time.
Yeah, I know that's eventually going to happen with some of my shows, and I'm not ready for that. Like I know, like I've been doing a writing podcast for like 2 or 3 years now. I'm like, if we keep doing going, it's going to happen, and it's going to hurt.
You're gonna have like that. My son was born when you started, and they have a pension. Well, maybe not that.
They have a pension.
I don't know. Anything's possible, right?
Yeah. Well, Kim, before we get into all that fun stuff, I got a fun question, icebreaker question for you beforehand, which is, how'd you get into D&D?
This is always an interesting one. So I did play it when I was a teenager, but that's like, the land that time forgot. So it was quite a while, and it was when I was in the Yogs cast with Mark Humes and Chris Trott and Katie and all that, and we were like, hey, do you want to play some Dungeons and Dragons and maybe stream it? And we did. So I feel like I always say, like, I feel like my actual first proper game of D&D, because when we were teenagers we kind of just didn't really follow a lot of the rules, because none of us knew what we were doing. So having Mark, who's a very experienced DM, sit down with us, I feel like that was my first proper game, was sat streaming to however many people. So yeah, really, I got into D&D just from friends, the power of friendship, and wanting to tell fantasy stories and just being a bunch of nerds who are like, I really like dragons and I like dungeons.
Polyhedral shapes are cool.
Put that together. Okay. So but yeah, that's how I got into it.
But that's still cool that like you still had the reference point at the beforehand, where it was just like you knew that was something that was an exciting thing to do. So yeah. I'm sure that kind of relieved a little bit of. But I mean, it's still streamed, but still, like it relieved a little bit of the pressure from it.
Yeah, I think it's like when I played it when I was younger. It was that thing, right? It's a group of friends, and we're just like, hey, do you want to try this out? Like, this sounds, like our wheelhouse. This is what we love. Lord of the Rings, like, had just come out in the cinema. Oh my gosh, yeah, wow. I'm just trying not to think of how many anniversary extensions we're up to now. We're up to the point where there's a new movie coming out and stuff like that. We got Rings of Power and all that. And I'm like, yeah, no, this was back when Lord of the Rings first came out in the cinema. And we were like, high on elves. And we were like, hey, do we want to be elves? Okay, yeah, let's be elves. And I think that's the story of how I got into D&D. It's just friends, right? It's just like friends being like, hey, want to be an elf? Yeah, I want to be an elf. elf. Let's be elves.
That's
Yeah, and
fantastic.
I think I always think that that is what is at the core of High Rollers now is we're just a bunch of friends who just want to play Dungeons and Dragons and tell cool stories together.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I mean, like I said, we're talking about high rollers there, but like I do want to say, like, watching you all play, it does give that vibe to it. Like there are groups where it's like, okay, this is definitely something that came together with these people. It's not that it's a bad thing. It's not that they don't have a connection or chemistry or anything like that, but it is very much like this is a gig. They're acting. They're doing all this stuff.
Past,
Yeah.
like, we were, and we're just like making fart jokes and really serious emotional moment that Mark has spent months trying to lay out, and we're just like
I I will be honest. Some of my favorite moments that I've seen from y'all's shows is Mark just having that moment where it's like, I put so much into this fart joke.
that single brain cell just activates and that's it. Like
Yeah. I have been that DM so many times. It's just such a relatable moment.
I apologize, but I can't promise it won't ever stop happening.
See, that's the thing though, is that like my group is very much the same with that, where it's like, they will have like serious moments and stuff, but like, yeah, it is a bunch of like immature jokes and stuff. Like there someone was once like, why don't we stream this? I'm like, because of you all. And like
We'll get canceled, yes.
Yeah. But like the thing is though, is you just kind of embrace it, but still like do the DM stuff that you want, but understand like at the end of the day, this probably will end up as a joke. And you just kind of go with it.
We do have some restraint, we do buy into the
Oh yeah.
we behave sometimes, and then sometimes there's days where there's a gas leak in the office and it just all falls apart. We had that recently, actually, in a recent episode. I don't know what happened. I think we were all just so tired or something like that, and like Trot made a joke that just came out of nowhere, and we genuinely had to go to break early because we just couldn't. We broke. We couldn't recover from it. I'm not going to repeat the joke here. You'll have to look that up yourself.
Hey.
Not suitable for work.
Okay, that's fair. I was just like, that's a great way to go get people to go watch that episode, but also that's fair.
It was chaos. It was like the kittens have escaped from the box and are shredding everything. It was wow. Like, yeah, we genuinely, we went to break and I came back and I was like, I've just cried all my makeup off. Like, I was laughing so hard, all my makeup was gone. And it just came out of nowhere. Trot, he gets me every time.
But that's such a great and genuine moment to like have recorded, not just for people to watch, but for y'all to go back and watch, down the road.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about Nova a bit. Tell, if folks are, we just had like this Epic Games Store promo, so we got a bunch of new players and everything in here. If they don't know, who is Nova?
Nova is she's an Air Ganassi and in the world of Erois. So Erois, all our campaigns have been homebrew world created by Mark, and Erois in particular was kind of high fantasy / sci-fi. We had spaceships and stuff like that. She was a warlock. I say was because we finished the campaign now, not because of anything. That's
a good quantifier to put on that.
Yeah, we finished the campaign. Oh my gosh, this time last year. It took 4 years. It's a 4-year campaign. But apparently it's very bingeable. If you want to catch up. So Nova is, she's my little nerd. She's, she's at heart a scientist. She's curious about the world. She wants to explore. She wants to question everything. And in doing so, she kind of left her home city of Vortensar. There's a whole story about that. It's actually an alien city that got planar shifted onto the planet of Erois. So technically we're aliens that came to the planet
That's cool.
generations ago. So she was born in Erois, but from generations of technically Ganassi were the aliens in Erois. And so she starts this campaign having left her city for the first time, quite young, quite naive, very intelligent. I always say very intelligent, but not very smart. Like not very wise, like not world wise, kind of very naive, very like,
book smart, not street smart.
Everybody. Exactly. Yeah, totally that. And she very soon comes across a sentient sword called Tiangong. And this was our kind of way of introducing the Warlock pact and the patron. So Tiangong became her patron. And Tiangong turns out to be an Eterna, which is basically this very ancient being, like sentient beings who can transform into like weaponry and ships and stuff like that.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, and somehow they
Hmm.
made it to Erois. And yeah, and so that's a bit of her journey is she's trying to figure out where Tiangong is from, how to return them from where they came from, more about them, that kind of thing. Um, yeah, so yeah, I love her. She's I based her off of at the time I was watching Star Trek Discovery. So
Okay.
that had just launched when we were sort of coming up with these ideas. And I was quite taken by Tilly and by Stamets, so the engineers,
Yeah.
and especially Tilly's sort of very passionate, enthusiastic, like must speak like 100 words a minute. My brain cannot contain all these thoughts, that kind of thing.
Relatable.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's kind of where I went with that. And yeah, she's very much inspired by Star Trek. I will just say that now. When she leveled up her armor, I think one of the other skins we have for Nova and Isle Champions was the with the golden armor, was inspired by Michelle Yeoh's mirror universe look because I saw that episode and I was like, yes, I want that. I love Michelle Yeoh. Like,
Mm.
I'm mixed Malaysian. So growing up, she's from Ipoh. And growing up, she was always the TV star, the movie star that
Mm.
we saw growing up. So she was, knowing that is her being in Star Trek was like, what? All my gay dreams come true. So yeah.
Well, and I love that we got to pull so much of that, like, love for different areas kind of into that skin for Nova.
Mhm.
That's really kind
Yeah.
of cool.
Yeah. We've had a fair amount of skins, haven't we? Like,
Hmm.
actually, my favorite one is where she's wearing the Starbane armor, so the dark plate with the purple, because that's actually technically the bad guy. But we had the point that we created that one was the point in the storyline where Nova was kind of like advocating for the and being like, maybe we should hear him out. Like, he's got a point. There's a lot of context to this. I am grossly giving you brushstrokes here. It's
It's not
not as
it's not
bad as
Drew
it sounds.
Barrymore in Charlie's Angel situation.
We're not talking bad guy like, like bad. He's a complicated bad guy,
Mm.
who actually has a very valid point at that point in the story.
I
And
love it.
yeah. So
Oh,
one of my faves, yeah.
well, so you actually knocked out my next question, which is like, what inspired you to make Nova, and so but I kind of wanted to dig in on this. So like the engineers were definitely like the inspiration for like who Nova was as a person. What made you want to go with Warlock?
So I'd not played a magic caster by that point.
Mm.
My first main character, Juto, was a monk. And we'd had like a few like mini campaigns where I'd been a barbarian. I'd been one of Mark's custom classes. The oh God, what was it called? Vigilante. Sort of like a Batman-esque
Oh, cool.
tinkerer and yeah, he that was oh God, that was Boomer, my little goblin, my little trash goblin who likes to set fires. Um,
I am one of those.
yeah, one of those. So I'd been very much like martial classes up to that point,
Mm.
and I was like, I want to try magic. I'm too stupid to play sorcerer. Um, and wizard just wasn't kind of cutting it for me. And then
Mm.
like I was like, warlock, 2 spell slots. Sweet. Like, I don't have to think too hard. So for me, it was a really nice introduction to magic casting.
Hmm.
Um, and I won't lie, because this campaign ran from like level 1 or 2 all the way up to level 20, there was a point where I got very bored of Warlock, where I was
I
like,
get you.
yeah, no, they clearly didn't think about the rest of these levels. Like, They really didn't like think about what needs to happen from here on out.
Mm.
So I did multi-class at a point into a fighter as well,
Oh,
which really suited the whole thing with Tiangong and stuff like that. Like, oh God, it narratively worked so well.
heck yeah.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I loved about Warlock, the thing that I became very much known for was because I feel like when a lot of people go for Warlocks, they go for all the nasty spells, like, like Blight and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, this makes a portal. I'm gonna make portals everywhere and just whoa. Broke every single encounter that Mark created from then on out.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so I very much became like really obsessed with all the kind of teleportation spells, the
Mm.
move spells, the kind of like I'm over here now
Yep.
kind of spells. And that's kind of how I played her and I loved it. Like I now there was a point where I got all of those kind of spells taken away and I was like, man, moving on my own feet sucks.
I I'm gonna be honest, Kim. I've never related so hard with someone I've interviewed on here. My last two characters, because I did a warlock before this one, and I have a Fey Wanderer ranger, but she's a astral elf, so she gets the
Oh,
teleportation step. And even my warlock, I did like the Fey touch feat, so I got Misty Step.
yes.
I have to teleport. I can't not teleport as a player.
Mhm. Dimension Door, Arcane Gate,
Hmm.
beautiful spells, and you can do so much with them, and just really kind of, bamboozle your DM and like, I'm gonna do this crazy thing.
Hmm.
And yeah, now I'm playing a druid, and it's just we're in a situation at the moment where we need to get from one side of the map to the other, and I'm like, I miss Dimension Door so
I gotta use my feet.
walk. Oh, yuck. I just want to go around everything that you've thrown at us,
I think the next character that I make, if I know I'm not gonna do teleportation things, I'm just gonna make it a turtle so I can be like, you know what? No, they're supposed to be slow. It's fine.
Yeah. Plus, I'm in a shell now, so you can't hit me.
Exactly. Who needs to move when?
Yeah. I love it though.
Um,
I really loved it. I miss Nova a lot. Like I was thinking, yeah, it's been a year since I've last played her. I miss her. I miss that little nerd.
yeah,
Nerd.
I that is one thing like with shows ending that it's interesting hearing what people do with those characters because like I know plenty of people who are like will take those characters and like play them in one shots or even like play them in some home games and stuff like that and there's other
Yeah.
people who are just straight up just like that character story is done.
Yeah.
I've put that I've laid that to rest. I'm good with it.
Dead to me
It's
now.
interesting.
Just dead to me now.
It's said to me now.
4 years of this, out. Easy go, easy go. No, I'm not like that. She's very close to my heart because I always think of Katie, one of our cat one of I keep saying cast. We're not really cast. One of the others on the show as well. My friend, my mate,
Hmm.
my chum. And she played Ayla, who was a barbarian.
Yeah.
And one of the things we did a Q&A early on and they were like, why did you choose Ayla? Why, she was a very kind of aggressive, strong personality, kind of like, I am going to do this, we're going to do this, or I'm going to hit you with my giant hammer. You're like, I'm going to, and she said something that always stuck with me, like, I created Ayla when I needed to be strong, like I needed that at my time
Oh
of life
wow.
with that. And like I kind of think that about Nova. Like I needed Nova at a time in my life where I was kind of like I'd almost lost my sense of curiosity in things. Like as a kid, I was always really kind of like curious about things, like how do things work? Like, I would just go in the garden like a little nerd and just like look at bugs and just be like, how do you work? And just be fascinated by that. I'd be fascinated by the night sky, which is perhaps what led to my love of Star Trek and stuff like that. And I don't know why. I just found myself at a time in my life where I was like, I guess just head down, trying to get on and not really letting myself find that kind of childlike
Hmm.
wonder about things. And so playing Nova for me was so cathartic to be that kind of just I want to unravel the world. I want to know how this works, and that kind of joy really stuck with me for a long time. And that was it as well. I wanted to play a joyful character, one,
Mm.
full of hope and belief in good things.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, I'm not saying that I don't have a similar kind of vibe now with my new character Gruff. Um, but yeah, I do miss that. I miss that kind of like manic. I found this thing and I must look at it. What are you going to analyze it? Like, oh, tell me everything,
Yeah.
That first.
There always is that kind of moment when you switch characters where you're just like you go to like do the answer like you did with the past character and you're like, wait, nope, that's different. I have to be
Yeah.
different now.
This one would be like this. Yes.
Exactly. So I want to ask, like, what was, the show has come to an end and everything like that, and obviously we don't want to give like too many spoilers because we want folks to go watch that show. It's on High Roller's YouTube channel right now. Go check it out. But like, what was Nova's arc like her character arc over the
Oh
show?
wow. Um, some very big things happened to her and some very emotional things as well. And there was a lot about her connection with Tiangong that got kind of strained, tested, put back together again. Um, and God, what it's hard to sum up what it was like. She definitely became jaded,
Mm,
um, but never lost that belief that good could be done. Um, she definitely just felt so much love for her friends, for the party that became her friends.
hmm
Um, there's in particular, there's a really beautiful arc with Quill, our Aarakocra, played by Tom. I won't spoil it, but it involves her kind of tinkering and gadgeteering, inventing, creating that kind of thing. Need to solve a problem and in a way that makes people's lives better.
hmm
And there's a really beautiful conclusion to that. Um, so I'd say it was there were points as well where it was frustrating because particularly when she returns home to Vortinsaw, the storyline that happened there was really quite difficult because it kind of did focus on propaganda
mm,
and I guess political campaigning and misinformation and that kind of things. Um, and yeah, it was one of those where like there is no good and bad, there is no black and white. It's all really complicated and things did not end in a way that Nova would have wanted, um, but that Nova had to do,
mm.
and I'm being mysterious because it
Yeah,
is such a big point and I don't really want to like spoil it.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, but yeah, I would say she had there was no clear like, she started off like this and ended off like this.
hmm
Like, but I think she learns that the world is not what you find in a book. It's
And
not
that, I
necessarily,
mean,
yeah.
that's a big character arc that I think people kind of dismiss, but like that is huge for someone to come to the realization of, like,
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you cope with that? And then
yeah.
do you return to your hermit shell? Do you return to your safe little world? Do you return to your little corner in the library? Or do you absorb? Do you open up? Do you adapt? Do you change? Do
hmm
you question and find answers? That kind of thing. And I feel like that's the kind of quest she was on. Like, yeah. Yeah.
I like that. Uh, well, so talking about the skin that we got coming out right now, which I'm sure our awesome producer Lauren is putting up on the screen. I forgot to mention, like I always do on these, this is pre-recorded, so we're not live right now. So yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, so
Yeah,
it was a big time difference, and I don't stay up past 10 o'clock because I'm old.
I
Um,
feel that.
so the guys that were very oh God, the word has just gone out. Accommodating.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah, yeah. No,
They're like,
we
Granny needs to go to bed. It's fine. You know?
I no I have done I'm always up for doing different times for these pre-recordings. Like we had the folks from Deer Soccer Pictures and they're in Australia, so like I was
Oh
doing a
wow,
show
yeah.
at like 5 p.m. when I usually leave work at 4:30, but I'm like, it's what works, let's do it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing as well. Like our industry right now is international.
Yeah.
It is, I think that's the wonder of online, creation with YouTube and Twitch and stuff like that is that yeah, we are able to play with everyone like around the world.
Oh
It's like,
yeah.
well, of course it is. Like it does add that extra spice when you're trying to align time.
Oh yeah. Well, my my brother-in-law, they live in Scotland, and he
Mhm.
plays in our weekly D&D game on
Oh wow.
Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific. He
Right. So
he's
that's
like, I'm so desperate for D&D, I will wake up at 3 in the morning to come play
that
with you
is
guys.
dedication, but
It
also I
is.
understand it. I understand that. That's what I want.
But
The length
but
you go to, right?
yeah, exactly right. Yeah. But yeah, we got the Worm Slayer Nova skin coming out, and what I wanted to ask is like, what were like some of the notes that you gave for thinking about like a Worm Slayer version of Nova?
Yeah, so when V first sent me the kind of brief of the event and the festival behind it, there was a lot in it that kind of reminded me of Lunar New Year. So the idea of like bright colors and noises to scare away the dragons, like, and that we are fighting a monster. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm Malaysian, I'm Chinese Malaysian. So we celebrate Chinese New Year, and the core belief behind that was that this giant monster called a Nyan would attack villages, and they drove the monster away with firecrackers, with loud colors, loud noises, and that's how we get the kind of color red and
Mm,
firecrackers and fireworks and stuff like that. And yeah, so it really just reminded me. I felt like there was a kind of a similarity there. And I was
yeah.
like, well, I'm only ever going to go one way then, and that's with a Chinese inspired outfit. Um, so when I went through it, I was like, okay, I love the old like dynasty.
Mm,
Um, I think I mentioned earlier, what grew up watching Michelle Yeoh, movies and also the kind of dynasty TV
yeah.
shows that you get, the really ones that are kind of awful, like they're just terribly made. The production values are dreadful. Like you can barely hear the microphones and the wigs be slipping and stuff like that. But I loved it. Like I grew up watching these kind of, Chinese empire, like the Han dynasty and this dynasty and that dynasty and the emperor's court and all of this kind of things. So I was like, I absolutely want Nova to be wearing like an outfit like one of those Chinese soldiers. So the
Hmm.
kind of quilted top with the studs in it, the helmet with the long plume, the feathers and stuff like that. And yeah, it just worked out really, really well, I think. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I loved it because and this is not to disparage any of the other ones, but like there were the other Worm Slayer skins that we have like are very like kind of like this high fantasy, like there's dragon bones on it and stuff,
Mm.
and seeing the one for Nova was really cool because it was separate from them in a way that still connected with everything because our artists are incredible and do a great
Yeah, they
job at
did a
connecting all
great
these
job.
things.
Yeah.
But the other reason I really liked it, and like this is again before like I knew who you were and everything like that, doing the research for the show and whatnot. But like that is something that hasn't been represented in our game before, and I thought that was a really cool thing to see in there.
Oh, I'm glad I could bring it because I also feel like, dragons are so integral to Chinese culture,
Hmm.
particularly with, the emperor and stuff like that. They were always, the kind of symbol for royalty for the emperor because like it was believed that dragons would take messages up to the heavens. They feature very heavily in mythology, as gods, as and things like that. So it kind of, to me, like the word worm, I instantly think dragon.
Yeah,
That's where I went, was I
yeah.
was like, well, of course, like Chinese dragons are cool, yo. Like
They are, yeah.
yeah.
Full disclosure, like when I was a kid, I was in Boy Scouts and we always helped out at the Chinese New Year's fair that happened
Mhm.
down here, and so like that became like Chinese mythology became like kind of my hyper focus as a kid for a little bit, and so yeah, no, like even the first time like I heard the term worm in reference to a dragon, I was like, oh yeah, no, like that kind of dragon, not what do
Yeah,
you mean
because
four-winged dragon is worm? That doesn't make sense.
they're very serpentine, right?
Yeah.
And they don't have wings, and they have. Well, I don't think worms have whiskers, but
If they do, I don't want to know.
do you want to imagine? I'm gonna have to go out in the garden again.
What are you doing out there? I'm looking for whiskers on worms.
Well, I don't know if it's exclusive to England, but there is a worm whispering competition here. I don't know if this is made out of England, but there is like a
I don't
folklore
often Google on
peevishly
the show, but
because I saw it. I'm sure I saw like it happened recently around here, and it's like, am I right? I didn't just dream this,
no,
right?
no. I typed in worm W and whisperer was the first thing that came up.
It's
I'm
fascinating.
There's apparently one in Brisbane, in Australia. So yeah,
Okay, okay, okay. I
okay.
swear I
There's a
saw
book.
it.
There's a kid's book
Yeah,
called The Worm Whisperer.
yeah. They're like you tap the ground to get them to come up, like in Dune, like where you tap the ground to get them to come up, like
I now have a new pitch for an event theme. The Worm Whisperers.
sign me up. Like let's do this.
Oh my god. Well, you learn something new every day, chat.
There you go. That's my fact to you all. England. It's wild over here. What
You
we
kn-
do, we complain about the weather, drink tea, and whisper to worms.
What else do you need? You know, like it's a simple life. So yeah, so yeah, we got the Worm Slayer skin that's in game right now. But yeah, we talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but I did want to bring it up again because you've talked about Star Trek with this, is inspiration for Nova, inspiration for some of the skins that you've done with Idle Champions and stuff. So like, I wanted to ask like what does Star Trek mean to you that like this is what is on your mind when making character stuff?
Oh man. So I grew up watching Star Trek from a very young age, and I have my mom to thank for that because, she watched the original series back when, growing up in Malaysia.
Mm,
Um, and it's one of those things where it kind of because when I was growing up, I moved a lot of different countries, but there was always Star Trek wherever I was in many different languages. Watching, Captain Picard monologue in Spanish, great. I highly recommend it.
oh my
Um,
gosh.
but yeah, it was always so I guess it's comfort to me. It always followed me throughout my life. And I think one thing that endures for me is that Star Trek at its core is a vision of hope,
Mm,
a vision of hope for humanity and for where we're going, that we transcend this earth and then we solve poverty, we solve famine, we solve, all these issues that are holding society back as a whole. And we go out as explorers and we try, the ideals of Starfleet, at its heart are exploration, diplomacy, holding these kind of very lofty goals,
mm,
very moral codes and stuff like that. And yeah, it is always to me that vision of hope of where we're going. And I think that's why I always keep coming back to it.
hmm.
Um, because especially like, the world right now is kind of a scary place, a
Yeah.
really scary place. And there is a comfort in watching Star Trek. Like, I'm not saying everything goes right. Like,
Oh yeah.
it has, Deep Space Nine, it has the whole entire arc about the war, against uh God, I literally just finished my rewatch, my like 10th rewatch of it.
The Bajoran. All right.
Yeah, not just the Bajoran War, but against the founders and stuff like that,
Mm,
and but it's about how they make it through that. They
mm,
persevere and they try to persevere with their morals intact. And obviously there are times where that slips, like, Benjamin Sisko's beautiful episode, where he admits that he used, very underhanded tactics to bring the Romulans into the war. Um, and yeah, that's what it is for me. It's always this vision of hope and where we can be if,
yeah.
we just all come together. And yeah, and that's why I love it, I think.
That's awesome. Yeah, uh, I actually the end of last year started really watching Star Trek.
Mhm.
Like
Okay.
it always been there when I was a kid and everything like that. But like
Mm.
I never really got it. I was a Star Wars kid. I got lightsabers and stuff. I'm like, oh, it's shiny and distracting. Uh, but like it's I totally get what you're saying though about like the hope thing because the reason I started watching Next Gen like last December was like I was at a very low kind of depressed point and I was like I just want to watch something that like is good that like instills like this sense of hope. And next gen popped into my head because I've heard so many people say that about it, and so I just started watching it, and like I've slowly been getting through it. Like I'm in season 6 right now, and I totally get it. Yeah, like it just has this feel about it where it's like, yeah, there's bad stuff going on, but there's people who are like, but we're gonna get through it, and I think I need that.
And I think that's the thing, right? Is like when you watch the crews, every season's crew, you know, season 1 of every show is rough. But one thing I love is every single series, you see the crew getting closer and closer together. And I think like the other thing I love is how you have this crew of people who are all excellent at what they do, right? They're all trained by Starfleet. They're all like, you know, really good at what they do, engineering, ops, security, leadership, blah, 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 all of this, science. And so it's seeing them being excellent and coming together to solve whatever is happening. And I feel like we relate to that because that's what D&D is, right? It's a cast of people, of players, of characters who might not have reasons to hang around with each other, but generally like through the campaign you're working together and you're being excellent at what you do to come together and solve problems. And I think that's why it resonates, right? Like, you know, there's definitely a similarity there. I am not talking about all you murder hobos out there. I'm talking generally speaking. I know
that was great.
Out there who are like, oh god. Yeah, last village we went to.
No, it's funny that you say that because like I very early on into me watching through Next Gen, I had the thought one episode. I think specifically it was one of the episodes that starts off with them like around the table playing poker, and I was just like, I desperately want to see these characters play D&D, not the actors, because I know some of them have done that and stuff like that. I want to see these characters play D&D. I want Data to DM it.
Funny you say that because Star Trek comics, man, the one that's been running I think since 2022 has a D&D
no, it
edition.
doesn't.
So there is like I'll send you the link later. I can't remember off the top of my head where it is. I think it's like the annual special or something like that. It was either 2022 or 2023, but they're playing D&D. And I think Data's in it and Beverly Crusher and stuff like that.
Oh my God, I need this.
Check that out. Like, check that out. It's awesome. Like, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, apparently the thing that I was like, that's a silly thought to have happened, and some awesome writer did it, and I appreciate you.
It's an excellent comic series as well, actually. Like, yeah, it picks up at the end of Deep Space Nine, and it's like, well, what if Benjamin Sisko came back? You know? So, no. You won't because you haven't caught up with it. But
I have started Deep Space Nine because I looked up timelines. And I'm like, okay, so season 6 about here, I can start watching. Okay, so I'll watch these in tandem.
That's a good way of doing it. Yeah, that's an awesome way of doing it.
Yeah, I figure I'm like, this is my first time like watching through it. I may as well like do something fun with it. So
that's an awesome idea.
But yeah, the going like seeing the skins that you'd done with Nova and seeing like the references there and everything like that, like even when like I hadn't watched everything and just knew stuff about it, was cool really seeing that. Like definitely the one that, and I told you this before we started recording, like the Q one just killed me. Like
so I was laughing at that one because I didn't actually come up with that idea. What happened was that your designers came to me and said, hey, we'd love to do like what festival it was event for those skins that we did. And I said, hey Cam, because it's robes, like this event is robe themed, we already have an idea for you.
Oh my God.
And they sent me that and I was like, you guys you know me so well.
That's fantastic.
Like, I was like, I'm kind of mildly offended that you've read me like this, but also mad respect because I absolutely want to be in the Q robes. Like, that's sick. Like, I love it.
I don't remember I don't remember who it was here at work, if it was marketing or art, but I do remember saying like they were like, I was mad that we couldn't have Nova like in the floating throne. They said it was gonna be too much.
Oh my God, could you imagine? Oh, I love you guys. That's why I keep coming back. You're my people. You understand.
That's yeah, that's good stuff. Okay, well, you know, we've talked about Nova and the Heroes of Eros, and we mentioned High Rollers and stuff, but you know, again, there may be folks out here that don't know what that is. What is High Rollers?
Um, well, you've seen this. Imagine there's more of us. Uh, they have more British accents than me. My accent code switches all the time, so I feel like I'm landing somewhere more to the American side, but weird American. Um, yeah, that's from when I grew up in South America and went to an American school. Um, yeah,
Okay.
their accents are far more authentic than mine. Um, But yeah, High Rollers is a group of friends who just decided that they love Dungeons and Dragons so much, and the only way we were ever going to make it so that we actually met and played a game regularly to the point that we complete it, we made it our job and launched a channel. So every Sunday we stream 5 p.m. English time. I think we're in British summertime right now, which
Math.
it's not going so well. It's raining every day here. Rule Britannia. And yeah, our Mark. Oh no, our DM Mark.
I don't know. I like that. Our Mark.
Our Mark
Yeah, not your Mark. Our Mark.
Is an absolutely amazing DM. He's incredibly talented, and our three main campaigns that we've done so far, so Lightfall, Erois, Althea, are all homebrews by him, and they all have a very different flavor and different themes.
Hmm.
So the one we're doing right now is very like so because Erois was very kind of sci-fi, high fantasy, that kind of thing, Althea is more classic fantasy. He was like, it's gonna have dungeons and it's gonna have dragons. And sure enough, there's lots of dragons. There's a lot of dragons. And yeah, they're really beautiful worlds that he's created, like really thoughtful, interesting, creative narrative ideas. He's really done a lot for the world building. And yeah, we make people cry, we make people laugh. Um, and yeah, I
Oh,
don't know what else to say. We just
well,
love telling stories together.
well, that was the world building thing was actually something that I had a question about. Was like because you talked about how like Nova and you know a long time ago her people like kind of plane shifted from that place. Like, do do are you all as players like kind of given like here's what's going on in the world, or is it more of like you give him an idea and the two of you kind of work together on building that section of the world?
So the way it's happened so far is that Mark has gone and created I don't want to say a skeleton because that does an injustice. Like he
Framework, yeah, like a
creates a
foundation, yeah.
framework and the basics and stuff like that. And then we've gone and read it. And then especially for Erois, like he actually didn't have that much on Vortensar. And he was just like, this thing happened, the switch happened, and they're here. And I went, okay, I want to be from that city. And
Mm,
then I went away and I ended up writing quite a lot about that city. And with his permission, I said, are
yeah.
you okay if I go and do this? And I basically filled out Vortensar. I filled out the geography, what it looks
Heck
like, the
yeah.
culture, the music. Like I said they were very into their music and opera and stuff like that and food. Like they were very, very into their food because also I had the four elements, like, so the elemental, ganassi.
Hmm.
So there was almost this competitive nature between like fire food and water food, that kind of that sort of thing. And then I fleshed out the Atlas Academy, which is where Nova went to school and university and stuff like that, and that became quite a big part of her story. And then yeah, I gave it to him, and however many episodes later, we ended up in Vortensar. And he took what I wrote, changed a few little bits and pieces
Hmm.
to better suit what he, built around a rose and also to keep things, spicy for me. But like yeah, and so it was collaborative in
Yeah.
terms of that. And especially for Althea, especially Tom, bless him, took one of the concepts. Um, I'm not gonna spoil it because it just
Mm.
got field. But he basically messed his character up real bad.
Mm.
Real bad. Like he took something that Mark wrote, like I think it was a sentence he wrote, and Tom was like, that. I'm gonna base my entire character around that, and it's gonna mess my boy up. And it has really messed his boy up. And yeah, so it is a very kind of like uh not give and take, like
It's collaborative. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
collaborative. Mark is ultimately the one who's doing all the hard work, and we're just kind of, coming in with little bits and pieces. And I love that because I feel as well, I don't know if this is selfish as me as a player, like, but it helps me round my character out if I can do a little bit about where they're from and like
Hmm.
think about what that culture is. So my current boy is a wild heart, which is the Altheian term for kind of the more bestial or animal-like races.
Hmm.
So technically, he's a leonin. In this world, he's a beast heart, and he's from a little village called Tremoro. And yes, I put on a terrible Welsh accent while I do this.
I love it.
Um, and he's from a place called Ice Heart, which Mark created. And I was like, okay, but no, he's going to be so Ice Heart, very north, very cold, frozen landscape. And I was like, I kind of want my guy to be a fisherman. So I
Mm.
created this little fishing village. Um, and I was like, I was very inspired by Cornwall and Wales. And Cornwall in particular has a love of horror stories.
Mm.
I think from there, look at being next to the ocean
Yeah.
and like having such a history with, people being lost to the sea and stuff like that, and strange things that you see at night on the ocean and stuff like that. There's a very strong horror story culture there. And I was like, I absolutely want this village to have something like a storyteller who at night they all gather in a central kind of building, and they all tell, they weave these stories, to keep, for a sense of community and to keep people entertained in those long, cold nights.
Heck
Um,
yeah.
and yeah, so it's just little details like that. I love kind of like it helps me as well, being like, okay, so now that would mean that Gruff is like this, and I've got some horror stories that I'm waiting for a moment.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. And
Yeah.
and no, I don't think that's selfish at all because like I think that's just really getting more into your character and getting a better stake in the world. Like that's
Mhm.
definitely kind of like pulling you more into it because you have had a hand in not only helping create it, but also more about it to kind of play that character. Because like, I understand that, folks don't have like a wildly large knowledge of for the Forgotten Realms, like if you try to do something with your elf and you're like, oh well, that's not actually how elves work here, that's kind of like defeating and like that kind of takes you out of it. So
Yeah.
I like that you all are able to have that moment with character creation and world building to tie it all together. That's really cool.
Mhm. Yeah, Mark is really that kind of DM where he's like, okay, well that way you've used that spell. That's not technically like what the spell, but we're gonna like, we're gonna go with it. Like this
Hmm.
is how we could use it to tell this moment. This is how, he's very much one of those DMs who works with, not against, and is
Yeah.
not like a stickler for the like, well, okay.
I
Yeah, and I
I've
love
only
that.
I've only got to meet Mark once, and it literally instantaneous. I'm like, yep, this is just like one of the nicest dudes I've ever met.
Yeah, really is like, yeah, and I think that's why we've been going on for like 8, 9 years now, is
Hmm.
because yeah, because of what he encourages in
Yeah.
us, rather than being like, no, this is the way it's gonna be, this is the way it's gonna rule. It's more like, yeah, it's a story we're telling together. And I think, that's certainly why I'm still here, because I can't
Yeah.
get enough of it.
Heck yeah. Well, and now you're all are going to be telling this story at a live show. Tell us about
Ooh.
that.
Excellent segue. So yeah, we have a live show in London, England, at the Adelphi Theatre on the 17th of September. It's our first live show. We've done smaller shows at conventions like TwitchCon and Insomnia and stuff like that, but this is our first, like, it's us.
Yeah.
And on a stage as well, and on one of the oldest stages in England, Broadway. Um, yeah, and it's kind of terrifying. Um, I've heard as well the theater is haunted. So
Hey,
come
character
along.
tie-in.
meet a ghost. I'm kind of hoping they'll join us. I think he's called William or something like that. He's actually an old actor who got murdered by the stage door.
That's the
Like an
most
old
that.
Victorian actor. Yeah.
Yep, that sounds like a very British ghost story. Yep.
Yeah. Come to England, we're haunted. Um, but yeah, so we're putting on a live show. It's going to be kind of it's set in the world of Althea with our characters that we're currently playing. And but it's not you're not going to have to know
I
everything
was gonna
about it.
ask
It's going to
that.
be
Okay.
yeah, like a little kind of side story, that kind of thing. Like you won't have to know everything. It's not going to ruin everything. And yeah, you get to meet us. We're
Hey.
quite nice. And well behaved in person. We've had all our shots. Um, and it'll be a nice night out in England. And London's pretty rad. And also they're doing the Adelphi is actually doing the Back to the Future production at the moment.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so yeah, if you come over from America, you could stay and see Back to the Future like the next night as well. Which is
Now, I'm only saying that's a great endorsement because I love Back to the Future so much, but really, go see it because this is an amazing group of people that are going to be doing a live performance and it's going to be real cool.
also, maybe we'll convince them that we need a DeLorean. Or we have a DeLorean somehow just rock up in the middle of the show.
If you all got the DeLorean prop to come out on during that game, oh my
Yep.
God.
Yep. I don't know how we'd fit it in because this is classic fantasy. Maybe if it was a Rois with the kind of sci-fi stuff, but this is classic fantasy, so we need to get
Apparently in the future of Althea, they got DeLoreans, you know?
Yes. We have a character called Zimzam Zambalor, who's like just a real asshole wizard who just, plane shifts from campaign to campaign. He turns up in Chaos and leaves. So maybe he turns up in a DeLorean and leaves.
That is one of my favorite DM NPCs to make, is the one that just does the bullshittery and then vanishes. And yes, that is, please, yes.
Arrive, cause chaos, leave.
Perfect. All right.
A live show.
All right, we got to start wrapping things up. Kim, thank you so much. This was fantastic. If people want to find you and what you do on the interwebs, where can they do so?
I'm on Twitter. Do we still call it Twitter?
I do. I don't care. Yeah. I just tell people socials now. I don't even say the names.
Yeah. So at NanoSounds is where you'll find me. I'm more active on Instagram. That's NanoSounds official. We have a Discord for a High Rollers community. And yeah, we love chatting with people there. Yeah, if you just look at High Rollers D&D, or you'll find us. We're there. We're around.
Heck yeah. We'll be sure to check that out and look into the live show if you're in the UK, or if you want to travel a bit further. And yeah, check out the Nova Wormslayer skin available in the in-game store of Isle Champions right now. But that's going to do it for this week's episode. Kim, again, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. That's going to do it for this week's episode. Till next week, take care of yourself.
Bye, everyone.